Hello, I'm Paul Charles Bell, and these are my short stories. This one's about the spirit of technology. Enjoy. It was the summer of 2010 when Sarah met Cameron. She was 19 years old, and Cameron, well, he wasn't too sure of his age. He looked like he was 10 years old, but he claimed he was around just after the Second World War. No one questioned him, though. He was very popular with the locals, and not even the police asked him why he was driving at his age. For some reason unknown to him, even himself, nobody even showed concern. He drove around in what looked like a mix between an old-style milk cart and a camper van. One morning Cameron was loading his shopping into the side of his van when Sarah passed by. "Hi, Cameron," she shouted. "Hello there," he said. After the usual pleasantries, Sarah asked Cameron about his van. "Do you sleep here?" she asked while trying to get in a sneaky peek. Cameron stopped in front of her and smiled. "Actually, I never let anyone into my van, but yes, this is my home." "Sorry, Cameron," she said, "but I'm just curious. You believe you were around just after the Second World War, but you're so young. You're driving and to top it off, the local police just wave to you when you drive by. Sorry, I just think that's odd." "You surprise me, Sarah. You're the first person to ask that question." "So what's the story?" she pushes. "Maybe I'll tell you sometime, but I only have half of it myself." Cameron went inside and closed the door, waving her goodbye with a smile, and Sarah went on her way riding her bike to workplace where she taught computer technology. Sarah was very bright for her age. She excelled in every computer class and taught mathematics to her fellow students at school. At just 19 years old, she was teaching at a local university. Saturday morning, and Sarah awoke to the sound of music coming from the street. She looked out and saw a procession going by on the way to the park down the road. She ran to the bathroom, brushed her shoulder-length brown hair, cleaned her teeth, and rushed to get dressed. In the park, the yearly festival was starting. It was 11 a.m., and some of her friends were there, including Cameron. Eating a hot dog, Cameron offered Sarah a bite, but she declined, smiling, enjoying the sun and the music. Cameron turned to Sarah and asked, "Are you good with electronics?" "Why," she replied, "I have a problem with my van, and I think you can help. I trust you, Sarah. I think you are very advanced for your age." Sarah smiled and agreed to go back with him at the end of the day. There was a stage on one side of the park set up for some live music where lots of people were dancing. Sarah and Cameron walked over. A rock band were playing a tribute to Stage Ghost, a rock band from West London. They were on and had everyone jumping up and down enjoying themselves. Sarah danced for a while and spent the afternoon with her other friends. Later that night, Sarah went to see Cameron and found him outside his van. "Ah, Sarah, I'm glad you're here." "Hi, Cameron, what's the problem?" "Now listen carefully, Sarah. I'm going to let you in my van, but you must promise not to tell anyone what you see." Sarah agreed and was invited inside. First of all, she saw what looked like to be a camper van. A couch, a bed, a sink, cooker, fridge, cupboards, a shower, and a water closet. What was different was a security code box with numbers from 0 to 9, and some odd-looking signs next to a mirror. Cameron touched the sign on his control panel, waved his hand over the mirror, and a green strip of light showed up on one of the side of the mirror. He continued to tap away on the panel and waved his hand over the mirror once again. A distorted picture came up on the mirror, and crackling sound mixed with a kind of Morse code. Sarah felt a mild static electricity under her feet, and she jumped. "Oh, sorry," said Cameron. "That's the problem. I can't get a clear picture on and the floor seems to be electrified. I think it's a computer thing. Can you have a look, please?" "Sure." Sarah proceeded to pull up a panel from the floor and exposed a bundle of loose wires. She seemed instinctively to know where each wire was supposed to be attached, and asked if Cameron had a soldering iron. He didn't, so she had to go home to collect hers. Later she was back in the van and reconnecting the wires. Slowly more lights started to show up on the mirror. Cameron pressed more codes on the control panel and again waved his hand over the mirror. The picture on the mirror became clearer and the sound was of someone speaking English. It was a message. Cameron, if you have accessed this message, then you have finally met your sister and this message is for her too. You are not from Earth. You are from a planet near the centre of what Earth calls Orion's belt. There is a war here, and as your parents, we decided it would be much safer for you to be put on Earth. You will eventually discover that you are not alone on this planet as you may think. Our ancestors colonized this Earth 65,000 years ago with thousands of other beings such as both of you, but with their memories erased. Earth is all you will know. You all became spiritually attached to the human reincarnation process. You are as human and your soul, your spirit has become caught up in the karma of all humans, have not been able to break free from. So after the past thousands of years, you have been reincarnated over and over as humans. By the time you get this message, the war would have been over a long time ago. You have it within you both, the knowledge of technology to rebuild a ship to find your way home. Use the transport unit I left with you to put together a ship. Start by reconfiguring the color code matrix on the mirror screen to show a green square, red triangle, green parallelogram, blue square, blue triangle, purple circle, green triangle. When you have done this, a map will show up on the screen. It is of the location of hidden knowledge and damaged ship. You cannot take this ship into space, but you can use its parts to build a new one. With the hidden knowledge is a code. Type the code you will find into an interactive unit and the instructions for using light as an energy source will be revealed to you. If you encounter any problems, use meditation and the ability to contact your spirit guide for help. Good luck, my children. And with that message ended, Cameron and Sarah looked at each other in shock. I knew there was something special about you, Sarah. I just knew it. Sarah just stared wide-eyed at Cameron. That explains something, she said. What? When I was young, I used to have these recurring dreams about being abducted by aliens and looking out of the window of a spaceship, Sarah said. How do we reconfigure the colour code matrix? Asked Cameron. I haven't a clue, came the reply, but maybe we should visit the library. Cameron stayed with his van and Sarah went off to the library. While browsing the library at the science section, a book fell from nowhere onto the floor. A book about the spiritual being and the colours of the aura. Browsing through the book, Sarah noticed a chapter heading, Using Light as Energy. She took the book to a seat and started to read the chapter. It was about the chakras and the aura, and through meditation you can use them both to help your life become more enlightened. But what really intrigued Sarah was the chapter about astral travelling and how to leave the body while sleeping and travelling around the world and the galaxy. After reading, Sarah thought it was not quite what she was looking for and left the book on the table and went back to the science section. A few moments later, another book fell from nowhere onto the floor in front of her. Bending Light with Thought. Sarah browsed that one too. It was about using the light within your soul to control things. This book was intriguing like the other one and went back to the table for the other book. It was still there, so she bought them both. When she returned home, she sat and read through one of the books. It told her about using the imagination and creating different colours of light within your aura to change the world around you. She put her hands over a television screen and imagined it to turn a different colour. It did for an instant. The colour she imagined was blue, and as she did, her hands lit up with blue, and the colour on the television screen turned from green to yellow, and then red. There was a slight static electricity, and she pulled away as if it hit her hands. She finished the book by the evening and went to see Cameron. He was pleased to see that she had come back to visit and welcomed her in. She told him about the book and the television screen and wanted to try to use it on the mirror. She put her hand over the mirror and imagined a bright blue The green strip at the top of the mirror came on as she imagined another colour. The green strip flickered a quick red. Cameron witnessed this. "Oh, you can do it too?" he questioned astonishingly. "What?" "You can use your thoughts to activate the mirror screen. But let me show you how to use the control panel. Each of these symbols represents a shape. Each number represents how many colours. But while your hand is over the mirror, it picks up the colour of your thoughts from your auric field, what colour you have imagined and created in your hands, and interacts with it. So by tapping the numbers on the panel and the appropriate shape, you can change the shade of the colour of what you imagine the colour of your hand to be. When you have finished and got exactly what you need in sequence, you can receive the required information stored in the mirror's logs. The more you do it, the quicker you get. Only I haven't had any luck as my knowledge of spiritualism is limited." "Spiritualism?" asked Sarah. "Yes, you need to know more about your aura and what your soul is capable of to get the best out of technology. You regularly need a switch to turn on a light bulb. With the power of your soul and thought, you can use the colours, your aura, as a switch. But I am not very good at this, so I only seem to get green to come up on the screen mirror." "Interesting," said Sarah, and tried to use her imagination to create a series of different colours to appear at once on the mirror. Imagine the green strip turning to red, then purple, then orange, yellow, and back to green. Sarah had a suggestion. "Try tapping a shape and then the number 1 after I get green to come up on the mirror." A small green square came up on the right hand side of the mirror and stayed lit. Then Sarah got red to appear next to the green box and tapped a shape on the panel, followed by the number 1. Then imagined another shade of green and it appeared on the mirror next to the red one, and repeated the procedure until the colours of the sequence in the message had become reality. A real live map of the earth came up on the screen and started to zoom in on a specific location. Egypt, Cairo, and the Great Pyramid of Giza. The map suddenly turned into an X-ray machine and showed what was inside and then underneath the Great Pyramid. Buried just 100 feet under the pyramid was a ship, a large ship, about a mile in diameter, round, and about 50 feet tall. Many rooms filled the ship, and eventually, using the control panel, Cameron slowly examined each room. "Here," he remarked, pointing to a wall in the ship, "we can go to this room and access the control panel to retrieve what we need." "How on earth are we going to get beneath the pyramid?" Sarah asked. Yes, of course. I don't know." She continued, "They will never let us dig. We'll get shot." Then she remembered what she had read about meditation and leaving the body. After trying to explain to Cameron the alternative, they both decided to get some expert help with this and went to find a hypnotherapist. Sarah explained to the doctor of hypnotherapy that they wanted to see if it was possible to leave their bodies and travel around the planet. After 10 minutes, the doctor had them both in a relaxed state and talked them through what they needed. Soon they found themselves in Egypt, floating above the Great Pyramid. It was night time and no one was around, although they wouldn't be seen anyway, as they were only in spirit form. When they found themselves on the ship under the pyramid, they floated around looking for the room with the controls, and eventually found it. With the power of thought, Cameron used what he knew to switch on the power of the ship. It worked. Lights came up on the computer panel, lit up. Then Sarah imagined the ship to fly, and it did. First it moved forward very rapidly and shaking violently, and suddenly shot up into the air and stayed floating soundless and motionless. Cameron and Sarah could see the devastation below. A huge crater had formed, causing an earthquake and swallowing up all 3 pyramids and the Sphinx. Of course, the crater was a mile big, but before the sand and dust began to settle, they were off again, and within a few seconds were slowly descending down beneath a large lake just outside of West London. No one saw it, and so it was not reported. It was 4 a.m. When they came out of their hypnotic state, wow! Sarah was in awe. She looked at Cameron. He didn't look bemused, but let out a loud laugh. What a dream, he said. What? That was no dream, she questioned, and tried to rationalise it herself. The hypnotherapist was in awe too. That was quite something, he said. You were gone for about 2.5 hours. Stepping up out of their seats, Sarah and Cameron stretched and thanked the doctor for his help and paid him more than he was expecting. When they got back to Cameron's van, they went inside and fell asleep. The next day, Cameron woke Sarah up in haste. Sarah, you have to see the news. The TV was on and the headlines were, Earthquake destroys Cairo. They looked at each other and began to shake. Oh my God, what have we done? Sarah whispered. The news reporter spoke of bright lights over Cairo, UFOs, and how Egypt's economy will fall due to lack of tourism. If there are no pyramids to see, no one will visit Egypt. We must go to the lake, said Sarah. And Cameron got into his driver's seat and started the engine. They stood at the front of the lake looking around, watching the people as they casually walked, enjoying the sun. Is it really in there? Sarah asked. Yes, Sarah, it is. 10 minutes of silence, and Sarah asked if it would be best to go to the Ministry of Defence for help getting to the ship. Cameron immediately refused. Sarah, they will not listen to us. Or even if they do, we would be considered a risk of national security and we'd be locked up. We will have to do this in secret. We need to move it to a place we can physically have a look inside. Cameron thinks carefully for a while. Maybe you're right, Sarah. Maybe it is too big for us to do on our own, without people seeing it. Whatever happens, we will be found out anyway, so let's get clean and handle it carefully. Later that evening, watching the news again, the Egyptian government had released some camcorder footage that people had sent in of the events of the night before. A brightly lit spacecraft came out of the sandstorm and the dust and hovered over the edge of Giza before shooting off to the west at great speed. Now the world is more open to the possibility of UFOs. Sarah had spent hours looking on the internet trying to find a contact number for the Ministry of Defence, but only can she find irrelevant numbers. Then she tried NASA and found that they were more easily accessible. Sarah spoke to various people and finally found someone who would take her seriously. 2 hours later, there was a knock on the door. Sarah looked through the window and saw 3 men and a woman, all wearing suits. She opened the door. Hello, is Sarah and Cameron here? Yes, hello, come in. This is my brother Cameron. All stared at Sarah as to try to read her body language. She offered drinks but was abruptly asked, please come with us. Being ushered out the door, Sarah and Cameron were put in different vehicles and were taken to the lake where the spacecraft is hiding. 10 minutes of silence went by until another man and a woman joined them from a van that followed them. The man introduced himself as General Cleves and proceeded to introduce the others as military personnel. The general looked at Sarah in the eyes and asked, have you seen what's on the news? Yes, said Sarah, we both have, pointing to her brother. The general continued, what makes you think we should believe you? Well, sir, we can show you, said Cameron. Once again, Cameron was taken seriously. Even though he looked like a child, the general spoke to him with just as much respect as any adult. The general got out of his car and approached several men dressed in diving gear. Already dripping wet, the first diver said, it's massive, sir. Cameron and Sarah tried to get out of the car, but couldn't, and they noticed that there were no civilians in the park. The general walked over to one of the other cars and spoke quietly to his staff, and then on the phone. Another 10 minutes went by, and Sarah and Cameron had no idea what was going to happen to them. But an army of armed soldiers arrived at the park and surrounded it. Then the general got into the back of a van that had arrived, only to emerge 5 minutes later. He walked over to Sarah and Cameron. Who are you? He asked. Wow, there's a question that you might find difficult answered, said Cameron. Try me. Cameron continued, "My memories go back to the aftermath of the Second World War. Anything before that I am blank on. I have looked like a child ever since I can remember, but I assure you I am older than you." The General was not surprised and asked for proof of identity. Sarah suggested they go back to Cameron's van and look inside, but the General said, "We already have, and we found nothing unusual. I assure you, sir, that I can prove who I am at my van." General Cleves agreed and got 2 of his chiefs and soldiers to go with them in the back of a large minibus that had tinted windows. In Cameron's van, Cameron got to the holographic computer to work and showed the colours of the mirror and how the control panel worked. The General breathed a sigh. "You had better come with me. We'll put you in a van in the back of a transport and you'll see it again tomorrow." They drove for 2 hours, arrived at an airbase where there was a plane waiting. "Wait a minute," said Sarah. "I have a job to go to. You can't just take me away." "Yes, we can," said the General. "I better call them and let them know I will not be there for a while. I'll tell them my mother is sick and I have to be with her." It was now 03:25 in the morning when they arrived at another Air Force base. Now in Scottish borders in the middle of nowhere, they all disembark and jeeps begin taking them to a building next to the hangar. They walked through the back door, which led into the back of the hangar. Shown to a mess hall, they were given food and drink. After an hour passed, they got into a lift and went down to what Sarah thought must be a basement, but the lift just kept going. Down, down, down. When they arrived and got out of the lift, they were taken to a room which had 4 large monitors, and each one had a similar control panel to that of Cameron's van. They were shown the seats at a table which was set up like a conference room. More people walked in and sat down to join them. Everyone was introduced. Sarah and Cameron were shown photographs of the spaceship over Egypt. Then they were shown photos of UFOs that looked similar and photos of different types of UFOs. Then the General opened an envelope of different photos. Aliens, small, tall and bug-like. Then the General asked, "Do any of these photos seem familiar to you?" "Yes, sir," Sarah and Cameron said together. The General stood up. "You really don't know who you are, do you? And yet you know how to control a ship." Sarah spoke. "Do you know who we are?" "It seems I know a good deal more than you, but we shall see." "Cameron," the General continued, "can you operate those mirrors?" "Well, we both know how to use the one on the van, but barely. These are much bigger, but I'll have a go." Sarah stood up and walked over to the control panel. Imagined her hand to glow red. Pressed the shape on the control panel and waved her hand over the mirror. A red shape lit up. Then she imagined green, pressed on a different shape, and again the shape showed up on the screen. Sarah turned around and said, "I can do this, but I don't know what it means. I need to know what code to put in." The General picked up the phone and muttered into it. When he hung up the phone, he turned to Sarah and Cameron. "There is someone I want you to meet. Just don't be alarmed when you see them. They are very friendly." A man walked in, followed by 2 little grey aliens. They were 4 feet tall and had skinny little bodies, big heads with big black eyes. They stood on the opposite side of the table and stared at Sarah and Cameron. They telepathically turned to the General and they walked out. Sarah and Cameron were very comfortable and at ease with what they'd just seen, but didn't know exactly why. The rest of the people in the room were happy with what they had witnessed and told the General to put them on the program. And then the room cleared and it was just the General, 2 officers, Sarah and Cameron. The General turned to them and said, "If word of your ship gets to Egypt, we might have a war on our hands and we must not let this happen. Now that we have found you, I realise you have much to learn about yourselves. These are Ministry of Defence contracts which must be signed in front of me right now for us to proceed further. The contracts were to swear them into a special official secrets act with penalty of death if broken. The general continued, "You have each been assigned quarters. Now that you have signed your oath to the government, your real work will start tomorrow. Sleep well." Then the general walked out. The two officers showed them to their quarters and they settled down to sleep. After lunch the next day they were shown around the top side of the camp, where everything seemed normal for the Royal Air Force, but below, that was yet to come. 35 levels, tunnelling deep within the ground and into the mountains. Each floor had its function, but what mattered to them and the general was about to be revealed. They followed the general into a hangar deep within the mountain. There stood 9 spaceships, next to each other, all damaged and beyond repair. These are crashed UFOs from all over Europe and some from the United States. There are more, and on various levels of this complex. Some we have been able to rebuild with help of various alien races, and some of those different alien races are also in this complex right now. Some are dead, some are being preserved, and some are alive and well. Some we can communicate with, some are more difficult. You'll meet them all later. Sarah admitted out loud that she is not at all surprised. She always believed in this stuff, and Cameron agreed. The general continued, "We need to know how you flew that ship and how you can bring it to this facility." "Oh, we were astral travelling. We would need to be hypnotised," said Sarah. "Well then," said the general, "sounds to me like you should get to know the Greys." Sarah and Cameron were taken to a ship that was being repaired and was introduced to the Grey aliens they had previously met. With the use of telepathy, the Greys communicated that it would be best to be in the medical lab to proceed with this practice. Sarah and Cameron were laying on their medical beds when each of the 2 Greys stood at their heads. Within less than 10 seconds, Sarah and Cameron were under hypnosis. Floating above their bodies, they realised they were not alone, as the Greys were with them in spirit. With just a quick thought, they found themselves back aboard the ship they had taken from Egypt, and were in front of the control panel. As it turned out, the Greys were with them to observe. Punching numbers and shapes on the control panel, Cameron and Sarah were bringing the ship back to life. With the park and the lake free from civilians, it was easy to bring the ship out of the water and quickly up into the sky. It didn't take long for the ship to be taken back to the base. They landed on the large field next to the runway. It didn't take long for the army to build a mile-size hangar around the ship. The general walked out of the main hangar to see the ship, followed by the 2 Greys, Sarah and Cameron. Cameron ran ahead with excitement and immediately found a hatch with a control mirror and panel. As the Greys approached, the hatch opened and a ramp appeared for them to enter. On board they found themselves in a corridor that ran around the inside of the ship. The general was excited to explore the ship with some other senior staff. After seeing various empty rooms, they came across a large enough room to be a hangar, so big in fact it could house at least 20 average-sized ships, but it was empty. Another room had a destroyed data storage unit with a control panel. Another room had what looked like beds and advanced doctor's tools. The general turned to the Greys and asked if this was where abductees get worked on. Without even a plutonic gesture, the general seemed satisfied that he had got an answer and proceeded to explore the ship. Lots of empty rooms, and finally, nearer to the centre of the ship, they found the bridge. The Greys looked over the systems and found that the hull had lost cohesion and would go brittle in freezing temperatures, so going into space would not be possible. Sarah and Cameron looked at each other and both remembered the message saying the ship is beyond repair. Now they both know why. By the end of the day, not even half the ship had been looked at, and at 23:30, more lights began to appear in the sky. "Don't be alarmed," said the general. "They're expected." With 3 ships landing next to the mothership, more grey aliens appeared and started to walk around and go on board. While drinking tea and learning from the General about the history of aliens on Earth, two of the Greys were approaching to talk with Cameron and gestured Sarah and Cameron to follow them back to the mothership. On the main bridge of the ship, they were shown a message on a mirror panel, translated to English. On approach to this beautiful planet, we have discovered a non-intelligent species, animal-like, very large, and unable to communicate. We decided to colonize, but became threatened by the creatures and decided to divert a passing asteroid to force the planet to end life on it. We then left for a few thousand rotations. This is the time it would take for the planet to clear of dust and develop a clean air and blue skies. We will bury our ship and build structures over the top to keep it hidden until the time is right. Upon return, we have discovered a new species, humanoid, very much like us but primitive. Communication is easy and we have been made to feel very welcome. Use this code to reveal the knowledge of light. Green square 1, green circle 1, red square 3, blue triangle 2, blue circle 3, orange triangle 1, red square 3, yellow circle 2. Use your aura to frequency high red 1, shimmer gold 1, medium gold 2, deep blue 1. Now imagine your hand glow gold and wave it over the mirror panel. Cameron thought about how Sarah proceeded with this and tried for himself, and it worked. The knowledge of light appeared. Instructions to use light as an energy source. Although this knowledge has been revealed, Cameron and Sarah realised it is no longer necessary, as so many aliens and ships were now within their reach, and the fact that now it didn't seem important to return to their parents' world. They decided their task was over, and their new friends on the Air Force base was enough for them. Their new task now was to join in on what the aliens were already on Earth for, to help the human race to develop spiritually and to get used to the idea of living among alien races. Hello, I hope you enjoyed that. Like and subscribe for more stories. Ciao for now.